We are good. Look at this, man. It's like I'm good on schedule. I'm sorry to say I'm good on schedule, but I'm really excited about this particular podcast because I've been wanting to do this particular podcast since the beginning of the podcast. I'm at the Schluter training right now. To the left of me, I've got Todd.
Yeah, Todd Velikis. I'm the commercial manager for Ontario. I'm a 20-year guy with Schluter. It's my 20th year this year.
Wow.
So, congratulations.
Thank you.
Did they give you an orange ring or something like that? What's going on?
I don't know. we'll see. I started off, actually, before I started with Schluter, I was with Schluter Distributor. So right from the day Schluter came to Canada, I was selling it as a distributor rep. That was for about 8 years, 11 years with the distributor, 8 years selling Schluter. And then I went to Schluter, and that's been 20 years there. So probably close to 30 years of selling Schluter products in North America.
Wow.
Beautiful.
Started off as the only guy in Ontario, so I took care of everything, architects, contractors, dealers, the whole works under one umbrella. Then as the company grew, they hired more people. Now we have 8 people in Ontario.
You were doing the job of 8 people.
Yeah, but the sales were a little different back then.
So to the left of you, you got...
I am Omid, the Tile Guy Inc.
I'm familiar with you.
Are you?
You just met Todd.
I did.
That's amazing that you just met Todd because I've known Todd since, I guess, for year 1 for me. You know what I mean? So what we got a nice podcast going on today where we got Schluter rep here. We're going to talk about Schluter. We're going to talk about bathrooms. We're going to talk about waterproofing. We're going to talk about a bunch of stuff. Then I've got an installer here who I respect quite a bit.
Oh, thank you.
Who knows how to do his shit, even though he's in his 20s. I don't want to knock any millennials out there,
know.
but I'm just saying he knows his shit. And then you got myself who I don't know shit. I got to say, so from day 1, my first reno, I was using Schluter. And the reason I was using Schluter is because I saw the information, I saw what it was about, someone explained it to me, and I just said, that kind of makes sense. So I started using Schluter Ditra. Now I think I've used every single product except for the new stuff that you guys have just launched, which are the shelving, right? But Todd, I want you to kind of tell us a little bit about Schluter history. We want to know more about Schluter history.
Okay, Schluter history. Well, Werner Schluter is the owner. It's a proprietorship, so it's wholly owned by one guy or one family. He was a master tile setter by trade. And back in the 70s, when the tile industry changed, where they stopped making a lot of the bullnoses and the trim pieces because the equipment changed in manufacturing of tile, which didn't lend itself for all the little accessory pieces. Being a good tile installer, he said, well, what am I going to do to finish the edge of the tile? So he went out to the local manufacturer of fabricator of metal and said, can you make something for me for his own application? Then he offered that opportunity to some other contractors in the area and said, hey, let's pool it all together and make this stuff as a business. And they said, nah, Warner, that's not going to fly. You do it. We'll buy it from you if we need it.
This is the 70s, late 70s kind of thing?
Those guys are kicking themselves in the ass right now for not jumping on this opportunity, right?
Of course.
He started that business and it's grown. Very interesting thing about Werner Schluter is that he has his mind is amazing and he sees things like coming up with the idea of Ditra. Yeah. Back when he did was so futuristic thinking.
How soon after the edging did he come up with the actual Ditra?
Yeah.
Was it a few years?
Ditra is about 38 years now on the market.
Okay, so it wasn't too long after the edging.
Not too far, no. So his the way he thinks is very unique. His 2 sons now have taken over the business because he's retired, or somewhat retired anyways.
You can't be retired when you love something.
Still got his fingers in things,
but
the day-to-day running of the business is for sure the kids. Just recently we started a product management group to kind of supplement Werner Schluter's thinking. So now it takes a group of like 20 some odd people come up with ideas that one guy was able to do. So
he was gifted 100%.
100%. And one of the things about the company too is that being a proprietorship, they can do things that corporations can't. They can invest in the future and say, oh, if we make our money back in 10 years, that's good. Or a corporation, not
they
so
don't look
much.
at it that way.
They look at, what's the turnover and there's formulas and all that kind of thing. So that's one of the things I love about the company is that it's very future thinking. For example, when we bought property in the U.S., they built a 10,000 square foot warehouse on 168 acres of land that they purchased.
So they knew that warehouse was going to grow.
And now that campus in Plattsburgh, New York is
How big?
filling in
Okay.
quickly. So we just put in like a 250,000 square foot warehouse addition. They're actually building 2-story warehouses.
Oh, that sounds like a facility I wouldn't mind visiting one day. Wink, 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 wink.
nudge.
When did it arrive in North America, Schluter? So he started in Germany.
It started in Germany, and the history of North America was that there was a German tile setter immigrated to Canada, and he wanted Schluter products. So he was on his distributor, bring this in for me, bring this in for me. So he started bringing it in for this one contractor, and the opportunity came to create distribution or availability of the product in North America. So it was offered to that distributor.
And that was around when? That would have been the 80s?
Yeah, or probably mid to early 80s.
Okay.
He then became a Schluter guy. He left his partner in the distribution business to do Schluter full time.
No, really. So directly they went and they just started bringing stuff in from Germany.
Yeah, I don't know if you know Dale Kempster. He was.
No.
Anyways, he was the first employee. Reinhard Plank, who was the general manager. Reinhard Plank started the whole thing with him and Dale Kempster in a van, driving throughout the United States.
No.
Staying.
Really? It's one of those stories, huh?
Sharing a room.
Really?
The cheap
One by
motel.
one, hitting every single tile setter, one by
Distributor.
one, and just talking to
Well,
them.
not so much. They went after distribution to set up a distribution network.
Okay.
Right? So they went from distributor to distributor to distributor. So if there was a show in, let's say, California, fill the van up with their show materials and drive, spend 2 weeks getting there, stopping city by city to set up distribution.
And what was the reaction? What was the reaction when people started seeing this? Was it all positive?
It was a little more challenging back then to convince people that, and the product line was a lot smaller as well. It was mostly the profiles. And then Ditra and Curdy.
The roller curtain, you had to explain that this
The science
fabric,
behind it back then, imagine,
And I can imagine all the tile setters back then were not all that warm about this.
No. It was, even the first time I saw it, I picked up a piece of Ditra and it's, flapping around.
How is this going to keep my tile from cracking?
What do you mean the floor has to move?
And I'm like, well, somebody's going to really have to explain this because back then it was like, concrete, dry pack, cement board was coming out at that time.
But that's the principle behind the Ditra membrane. It's that whole dry pack, but just thinner. That's how it works, right? That's how it was explained to me in the beginning.
If we want to get onto the topic of Ditra right now, Ditra is called an uncoupling membrane. What it does is it allows the tile layer above the Ditra to move independently of the substrate. So in other words, if the plywood, for example, was to swell from humidity, that movement wouldn't transfer to the tile because the Ditra layer allows that movement to be dissipated. Okay, so it's lost in that configured membrane. And it's the hollow cavities of the Ditra that are, between the ridges. That hollow cavity is what absorbs the movement. If you don't have a hollow cavity, it's not going to absorb any movement.
It won't,
'cause
and
there's
you'll
nowhere
have failure.
So you have direct transfer of stress.
I got a question. So I see a lot of guys, what they do, the science behind it is you've got these pockets which your thin set mortar would basically embed itself into, and which is attached to the tile. So which allows for this transfer, this shear moment to basically dissipate a little bit the left and right. But I see a lot of guys, what they do after they install their Ditra, they trowel in this cups and then install the tile on top. What do you think about that?
That's the
science
question
behind
that's
it.
always asked.
This is the thing where I see the science behind and the practice. I wanted to get your take on that.
Is there a right or wrong, Todd?
Okay, let me explain.
Okay.
All right.
We want to hear.
Ears are open.
The whole idea is to have load distribution. So when you put a load on the tile, the load can travel through the tile, through the mortar, and into the substrate. So all the squares of the Ditra, some people call them chiclets.
Chiclets. Oh, I remember
there we go.
chiclets. Oh, okay. I remember them.
So the chiclets...
That's if you're using white mortar, then they're chiclets. If you're using gray, they're not.
So the chiclets are like columns of a building that support the load.
Oh,
right?
okay.
The mortar on top and the tile is like the roof slab of a commercial building. Chiclets are the columns that
Your piers, your piles.
transfers the load. So that's why it's very important to have all the layers bonded to allow for that load transfer. If you filled the chiclets first and then spread mortar on top and set the tile, you're still, and that's bonded together, which it will because thin set's a good bond. That load will transfer.
There we go.
Whether you do it in one shot and set the tile, or you fill the chiclets, let it set up, install thin set and tile. Either way is perfectly fine.
So as long as the bond occurs between the two substrates even before or
That's
after,
all you guys
then you're
care
good.
about.
So that's it.
Yeah.
So now we know.
The only disadvantage of doing it in 2 steps, well, you're double the labor.
Yeah.
In a sense, there is a possibility that, well, let's say the drywall guy comes in and starts sanding drywall and he covers all the thin set with white drywall dust.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you going to clean that properly?
But my biggest problem, and
that
the
gonna
reason
cost
why
a bunch?
I've always done it in 2 steps, is that you have intricate tile work going on, and you need to draw lines, and you need to put tape marks, and you have to figure out where the pattern starts and all this other shit. Good luck on trying to do that with wet mortar
Or snap chalk lines on
Exactly.
plastic.
Yep.
or on plastic, exactly, because
Right.
it just disappears right away.
There's 2 things you can do to keep the chalk lines on your on the plastic. Number 1 is to use black chalk, which is a permanent chalk, but then there's disadvantages because it gets on stuff that doesn't come off
Yeah,
very easily.
that's the problem.
And then hairspray. So you could use, let's say, a blue or a red chalk, dollar store hairspray. You spray it on top.
I don't know a single contractor that has hairspray in his truck. I know a lot have mousse, but not hairspray. So
I
can we
think
use
it's time
mousse?
to change that.
Yeah, it's a bit of embarrassment for the installer to be walking around with us.
Just a couple sprays before an estimate, you know.
Yeah. All right, so that age-old question's been answered now. So we're not doing it wrong, and the guys who are doing it the other way, they're not doing it wrong,
No.
right? So it's personal preference at that point.
Now, there's advantages to doing, other than snapping chalk lines, is traffic. So, for example, there was one commercial installation where there was an entrance to an office tower downtown Toronto, and they had to do DTRA in the front entrance, and they couldn't get the job done fast enough.
Oh, in the time that they were allowed to actually physically work. Okay.
So what they did is they installed the DTRA, filled the chiclets with inset with fast setting mortar, and then it opened it up for traffic. So the next morning I was on site with the contractor, and we're going to evaluate what areas needed to be replaced based on what's loose, and there was nothing loose.
Oh, wow.
And they estimated close to, they're saying about 10,000 people walked on that floor.
Wow.
See?
So that kind of convinced me that filling the chiclets and letting traffic on the floor is not.
As long as you clean it before you start setting
Yeah.
your tile.
Then they set the tile and everything's great. And then it's what kind of mortar was used underneath the DTRA too. They used a fast setting mortar so that in 3-4 hours it's set
It's
up.
set, yeah.
So if you used the regular mortar and put
That'd be
that
a
kind of
different
traffic
story.
on
Yeah,
there, I think you'd have a disaster.
And that was adhered to concrete, of course.
Yes, filling it and allowing traffic on. If you know your schedule is such that you're not going to get your tile installed, and people are going to walk on it.
Yeah.
Well, that's the good thing about the new products, that you got to start paying attention to how these new products are supposed to be installed, but then also you got to cater to how to install those products to how you run your business. Because we understand that a tile installer will come in and they've got a full day, and they rather stay at one job site and do all that work that they can instead of go back into traffic and spend a lot of time in traffic and go to another job site. So if you can plan for that, all the better for you, right? Gone are the days of scratch coat, right? So there's all that bullshit where you had to put it on and let it dry and then move on from there. But then all of a sudden, in 5 years, you had to change those tiles up because they cracked, because they were not separated from the substructure. So from DTRA, we got into Curdy. That must have been an uphill battle as well, too, with Curdy. How do you explain a fabric material-like thing?
The Curdy challenge was originally that we didn't have a drain. Go and sell the idea of Curdy to a contractor or builder or whoever. They'd say, well, okay, how do I connect it to the drain?
I don't even know those days. That must have been weird, eh? You guys are coming out with a product that's not complete.
Right. So we had a waterproofing membrane that was a great waterproofing membrane, but it wasn't part of a system because the drains at the time were clamping drains, 2-stage drain that was meant to be used with a rubber liner.
Yeah.
And now we're saying here we have a surface waterproofing rather than a subsurface. So how do you take that
But that
membrane
made
from the
sense to
surface
me.
and bring it down
A
to the
surface
drain?
waterproofing made a lot more sense than a below waterproofing because you have the weeping hole. So you purposely want water to get past where you want it to be and get it closer to the substructure. That's what you want. You don't want water to get anywhere near there. You want it to be at the top and then just go through and that's it.
Don't saturate the substrate. But with the rubber liner, before surface waterproofing came out, the only way to do it was to use a rubber liner. But because you can't bond to the rubber liner, you then have to put load distribution layer, which is your 1.5-inch dry pack.
Yeah.
So that distributes your load over a non-bondable rubber, and then you can set your tile. But then that whole structure, the tile, the grout, and the mortar, dry pack, is susceptible to water. So
Yes.
it gets wet, doesn't dry out. If you go back many, many years, people didn't shower every day.
They bathe.
That's a big thing too.
Yeah.
A lot of people are taking a lot more showers. I sometimes even take 2 showers a day in the morning. Come home from work all dusty. It's ridiculous. So definitely, there's a lot more showers.
Todd, please tell me
yeah.
you guys have stats on how many hours people spend a year or days in the shower. Yeah, I was curious about this. My thought, like when I was driving around the other day, I was thinking,
Yeah.
showers are a huge thing, and that's why showers are becoming bigger and they have more heads and have all these other features and niches and all this other stuff. They've got to be days per year that a man and a woman, I'm assuming women probably spend a little more time in a shower. But yeah, you're right. They stopped using baths and they were using more showers. So if they're spending more time in showers, then we had to make sure those showers were fully waterproofed and not constantly, because they would be saturated.
Yeah.
That dry pack would constantly be
Yeah,
saturated.
100%.
That rubber memory would be saturated. So basically, it's a pool. It would be a pool at that time, and eventually, water is going to get through. No, that's just common sense. So you guys were trying to sell that, and then all of a sudden, the drain came along,
Yeah,
which changed everything.
That was huge because now all of a sudden we have a system. We have the drain that connects to the drain pipe, and then we have a waterproofing that can go up and across the floor, the bench, the walls, whatever, and you can set the tile, and the water's never going to get out of that. Like one plumber called it a funnel, a plastic funnel that
It's
is
true.
attached
The
to a
orange
pipe
funnel.
That's true.
that you can set tile to, right?
Did the
So
drain show up the same time as the corner and the curdy band and all that kind of stuff?
that was an evolution afterwards as we saw the need for these additional pieces. So, for example, the inside outside corners.
Yep.
We were initially just saying, cut a square piece of curdy.
I remember that.
Yeah, I
and
remember
fold
that
it
too,
to
yeah.
to make a corner.
Yeah.
And it did work, but installers are going, what about that corner? I don't trust it. What if I send my, B guy to do it? And if it's not,
It leaks, and I got to come back.
Yeah.
and what it is that even though it worked, the onus is on the installer. Okay, and what we try to do is take the responsibility away from the installer more and more and more. Everything that we try and do is to make the installation for the installer easier, but also take the liability from the installer. The risk, for example, you can form a corner by folding, or you can have a pre-molded corner. The pre-molded corner makes it, number one, easier and faster instead of having to cut your own, and it takes the liability away. So if you didn't fold your corner right and it leaked, well, whose fault is that? That's the installer's fault. Now, if you use a pre-molded corner, there's no risk. So the risk gets reduced and reduced and reduced. So, for example, in our shower system now, we have our shower trays already factory covered with curdy.
There's the evolution.
Yep.
So now the onus is taken away from the installer to do a proper.
When are you guys going to start
Coverage.
installing these things for us?
Well, I can't take their job away.
You can't
from
take that. Can I bring up a point that a lot of I'm going to say the new kids out there have complained about is the buildup.
Yeah. I've heard that as but
We know we've got the curdy that goes on the walls, and then we got to put the curdy band, and then on top of the curdy band, you got to put the corner. So now you start having a tiny bit of buildup. Sure, they've complained about that, saying that it's ridiculous that now you got to skim coat everything. And my argument is that you'll only have to skim coat everything if you're using a really thin, possibly 1/8 inch or 2 mil glass mosaic, because then it'll take the shape, it'll take all the deflections and stuff
Yeah.
like that. But odds are, if you're using a 2 mil glass mosaic, you're spending, the client is at least $30 to $50 a square foot. What's the big deal about skimming everything for that particular expensive tile that you need to make it work? But if you're using large format tile, then you have to build it out anyway. You have to build it out, 6 mil of thin set or something like that behind there. So you're not going to be touching that corner. There isn't going to be an issue with buildup.
Yeah.
But how do you guys answer that when people address it and they come to you?
Well, it's two-part answer for that. One is the installation technique. We actually have a YouTube video out there showing how to do the corners, reduce the amount of buildup.
What is exactly the perfect buildup allowance that you guys say we should be able to get when we're installing these corners? From the first plane, I guess, of curdy, because we're talking about curdy, the actual membrane, and now we're talking about curdy board. Then we got to put curdy band, and then we got to put the corner. So how far is that curdy band and curdy corner coming out from the actual first plane?
If you take a look at the length of the curdy band, it's considerably more than, I couldn't tell you how long it is, but it's considerably more than 2 inches.
Yeah.
So when you're doing the band, you only need to cover the corner by 2 inches. Most guys go too far with the band.
and then
Yeah.
you overlap, and that's what causes.
And now
that
you've
issue.
got that double layer
Yes.
where you should have a single layer. I think it's an education thing to be able to do the overlaps in a way that it minimizes the buildup. The second thing is trowel size and how much mortar is in between those layers. You put a little extra mortar in, you leave a little ridge when you're spreading the
Yeah.
mortar, a little blob in there, and that's going to cause more buildup than the thickness of the Curdy. Being really careful with the buildup, making sure you don't have more overlaps than you really need to.
Yeah, and through my experience, what I found too in the beginning, a big thing is with the buildup is actually how viscous your mortar is.
That's another thing too.
So I find a lot of guys, like you can even see on the wall where you could see that mortar is way too thick. You need to water it down, and it needs to be, if there's a lot, I saw even the YouTube videos, they were really well made, and it shows exactly what the consistency should look like. It's not watery, but it's enough so that once it's pressed on, it's almost like it's the same thickness of your actually Curdy.
Well, when
member.
you're installing the Curdy products, you want your thin set, your mortar to be a
Yes,
little bit
or else it
wetter
won't
than
bond,
drier.
right? You can actually see if the bond is there or not.
The liquidity of the mortar is very important, and the type of mortar that you're using as well. Some mortars now, because they're designed to be built up thicker because of the larger format tile, has a larger sand particle.
Yes.
Okay, it's grainier.
Works against you now.
Now that grain is going to cause the buildup because you can't squish down the sand grain, and that can cause buildup. So choosing a nice creamy mortar as opposed to a grainy mortar. Remember, we were doing a workshop here with a bunch of contractors, and they're doing the modules, and the mortar we were using at the time was really grainy. And one of the guys, just stop and listen. I'm listening, and you just hear this grinding sound because of the trowels going over the sand, the large sand particles. It was almost deafening. It was really loud. Kind of tells you that mortar has...
I know, but that's the bag that the installer has in the back of his van. Again, if you're dealing with a system and you want to do it properly, then you want to make sure you have the proper products as well. And we won't jump ahead just yet because we know that you guys have your own thin set and mortars and things like that. So from the Curdy and the drain, where do we go from there?
The interesting story, when the drain first came out, my first sale wasn't for Manny's basement shower or, it was 500 showers at the Ritz-Carlton Grand Cayman Islands.
Wow.
My first sale.
And I wasn't invited.
Neither was I, actually.
Come on.
We sent a rep that worked out of Florida on site to train the guys because this is a brand new system. Nobody's ever seen it before. The contractor is from Toronto doing the job.
That's a nice gig.
And he hired installers from Turkey.
That's interesting.
Wow.
Did not speak English.
So how did that work?
Our rep went there, spent the morning. They did one shower, showed him how to do it. They did another shower. He was satisfied that they knew what they were doing. The contractor was very vigilant on supervising. They water tested every single shower. Not a single one leaked.
Funnel.
They tiled it, and the contractor said when they turned it over and it was occupied, they had 3 showers that were leaking, and he was called, and he said, it's not our waterproofing, 100% guaranteed. That's how confident he was after this job. So they went back and checked, and sure enough, it was the water supply that was leaking inside the wall, and one of the drains didn't have any cement, any glue to join to the pipe, and that's where that one was leaking.
500 of them, huh?
Yeah. So quite honestly, I was very nervous about that because it's a new system. I'm thinking,
But it's a proven, like this is a perfect proving ground.
Yeah. And after that, I was like, this is great because I know it's easy. If you come out with a product that is a good product, but is very difficult to use.
Yes.
The market won't attract, they won't.
It's very difficult to get a good installation. Then even though the product itself may be good, it's not a viable product.
It's a big time saver.
It is, because
time is money with any industry. And the one thing I find with the Schluter is I can carry a stack of 5 Curdy boards up a flight of stairs. Try doing that with a 4x8 sheet of den shield or cement board. Good luck. There's no way you can do it.
Or you can do regular drywall.
Yeah.
If you don't care. So we did the 500 drains, we did the drains, and now we're moving along to what? Curdy board.
So, no, Curdy board is a little further down in the evolution.
Really, huh? Yeah. So what was next?
So we had the drain, and we had the Curdy, and we started doing little demos and workshops and, teaching people how to use it. We realized very quickly that the skill of using dry pack to create the slope to the drain was not there.
Not everybody was there.
So let's say we trained 10 people. We had 1 or 2 that were proficient at using dry pack, and the others were not so good. So I remember doing workshops, and they'd bring everybody back into the classroom. Dale was the presenter, and I'd be in the back fixing the shower bases that they did, because the next day we were going to install Curdy, and they were so bad that you wouldn't be able to install over that.
It was that bumpy, huh?
Yeah. So we thought, my goodness, if all these guys, 80% of the guys installing tile can't do a dry pack, how is our system going to?
It won't.
Yeah,
It's
it
going to
won't
be a
work.
problem.
Yeah.
So then we thought, hey, let's come out with a prefabricated, pre-sloped shower base that's easy to install. Boom, out came our shower trays.
That would have been the 32 by 60s.
32 by 60 and the 48 by 48s.
And then you had the offset drain as well. And that was a game changer as well, too. Because
Yeah.
in the beginning, I did dry pack. But then once the tray came, what's the point of doing dry pack? But I remember a lot of contractors looking at that tray and going, it's foam. I don't understand. I'm walking on foam. Like, this is going to work? I don't understand how that's going to work. So how is that sell? Like, how do you sales pitch that?
You have to kind of train the market, and that's not an easy thing to do.
Unless it's technology.
Well-
if it's like an iPod or something like that, you train the market really fast. But if it's construction like we're dinosaurs, it's harder for you guys to sell new products to us.
Absolutely. Well, something like cement board took 20 years for it to become popular.
Really, huh? What was it before? It was just all wire, lath, and just
Wire lath and
Mud
parging
dogs.
with cement.
Parging.
That's
Yeah.
it.
Oh, fuck, that was a pain in the ass,
Who
man.
parges a wall?
There's a lot of guys still do it in California. I was
That's-
just about
that's it.
California
Mud
live
dogs,
by it.
Instagram, everyone knows.
They live by it, right? So yeah.
There is markets for sure that still do a lot of dry pack and parging of walls, and guys that even in our market here in Ontario will parge swimming pool walls. It has to be parged before a pool's tiled. So that skill is still there, and there's people that do it. But why would you do it when you have a simpler way with using Curdy board, for example, to flatten a wall? So
I think, you know what it is? I think a lot of guys don't know about, and maybe you might want to touch base on this, and what wet shimming is and how you can square off walls in bathrooms. Because a lot of these guys that's over there, they do it because they can get those walls dead square and flat. But here, since we're dealing with wood and crowns and, things are not 100% with wood, to get to that 100%, it's if you wet shim, you can achieve that. So maybe you want to touch base a little bit about that and how we can actually get to that.
well, wet shimming is basically spot bonding, right? Where you put blobs of mortar. Let's say, first of all, there's two surfaces. There's a already existing
And they're
wall
not square, yeah.
So let's say the guy put up drywall. They're not square. It's not level. It could be bowed and humped. And
Every house.
by putting blobs of mortar on the back of the Curdy board or on the wall, and then pressing the Curdy board in, pushing it in with let's say a 6-foot level, you can get the wall perfectly flat, perfectly level, and even square in the inside corner. So now when you have perfectly level and square and flat, your tile installation
A dream.
really easy.
Less
Because-
mortar in the front as well. It's another, I think, 5 minutes of board installing.
Because basically,
No
tile
more than that.
installers, I don't think I've met a tile installer who charges by the hour. I think they charge by the square footage.
Yep.
So if you can make the prep and the base perfect, then they could actually make money and run a business properly.
Well, that was the idea of Curdy board again, was that installers were saying, well, I never get a flat surface. The other trades are giving me garbage to work with, and then I have to make my tile installation good. So either I spend the time to straighten the wall, which wasn't budgeted,
Nope.
or I have to do my best to do the tile installation. So by coming out with Curdy board, we're trying to make it easier. So give more work to the tile guy, so he's prepping the walls instead of somebody else.
But that's
Yeah,
not
the
fair,
fallback.
right? That's not the way it should be done, right? I know, I understand.
There's
Because I
reality.
generally like to hang out during the shower areas when we're framing them and making sure that they're as plumb as possible. Because I know I'm going to have a problem with glass later on, and everything has to be perfect. So then you might as well make things a little easier for the guys ahead of you. But I know the industry doesn't do that. They don't really pay attention to that. So
So for example, like there's studs that are made out of fiber. What are those called?
well, the engineered studs, right?
Engineered studs,
Yeah.
right? They're perfectly straight. They'll never warp and everything else.
And the guys will live by them for pocket doors and things like that. Why don't we live by them for showers?
And for kitchen cabinets, again, you need
Oh, that
perfectly
kitchen-
level,
yeah.
right, to get your cabinets on properly and the countertops. Those areas, it adds a little bit to the cost, but it makes it so much
Saves
easier.
times in the long run. Yeah.
Later on.
Yep.
Yeah, I know.
So if that was the case, it'd be a lot better, but it's unfortunately not. And 99% of the time, unless you've got a renovation contractor like yourself that's going to build everything up properly and
Yep.
that makes sense, most of the time guys are faced with subdivision housing and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's, you got to deal with the reality that wet shimming or spot bonding on an existing surface. Then you can also do the same thing with studs. So if you have studs, you can put mortar on the studs, press the Curdy board in till it's level, and then wait till the next day to put your fasteners in. So now the mortar is hardened in behind. It may not be enough to hold the board on the studs, but it's enough to hold the board in place because the board's so light. The mortar's hardened up, so now when you put the screws through, you're not going to draw the board into the crooked studs.
That's a new one for me. I like that.
Yeah, and you have to put a straight edge against the wall to see how far out and how big of a blob you need to put on the stud or on the wall to make sure that it makes contact with the board. One project I was on there, they spent 11 man days parging walls
For
in
like
a commercial bathroom with showers and whatnot.
11 man days.
A lot of time.
It was
a lot of
huge.
time.
And they were like, we're going to lose our shirt on this job. And I showed them Curdy boards. So I went in and with a 70-year-old foreman and one bucket, he gave me one bucket, to mix thin set in, we finished a bathroom in one day. And here's a sales guy, me,
Doing
an
it.
installer. I did most of the work, and we pretty much finished in one day. 11 man days, one day. They finished the rest of it. They finished on time. There was a huge penalty on that job also for not finishing on time.
Yeah, with commercial jobs, 100%.
They were able to finish. Their labor costs were reduced, and that compensated for the cost of the board very easily.
So I guess that's the deal, is that once the new guys, or even the old guys, get trying it and using it, they're sold. Yeah. I don't think, has anybody ever said, no, I'm going right back to what I was doing? They're just setting their way. I know I've met an old school guy, an old school guy, Italian guy. He's probably on his last year of tile setting, and he will not touch your product. And him and I were talking for the longest time about what's the reason? But he's so used to doing 1.5 to 2 inches dry pack and setting the stone and setting the tile and all this other stuff. He just is stuck in his ways of that. And I just argued with him about the buildup. Now you have to build up the entire space. You know what I mean? If you're raising that tile floor to 2 inches for a dry pack, what do you do for the rest of the area there? You're not going to have a threshold that's going to ramp up or something like that. But he just would not. He would not accept it.
I think that's an age thing also.
Totally.
Some guys,
Old dog.
they're just like, I'm at the end of my career. I just don't want to learn anything new, and it's not worth it.
Yeah.
Where younger guys, they see a benefit for many years to learn something new. It's a type of person too. There's some guys that are just like, I don't trust foam.
I didn't trust foam in the
trust
beginning, but once I did it and I came back the next day and it was dry, it was rock hard. And I even trusted Curdy board when I put it on, and you could feel a little bit of deflection in the wall in between the 14.5 inches of studding. And all of a sudden you got it ready and you installed tile, and even as thin as I've done this before, 2 mil glass, that's 6 mil by, I guess it would be about maybe 40 mils, thin pieces of glass mosaic. And once that thin set cured, it was rock hard. There was no deflection in the board anymore.
Yeah.
So, I mean, when I saw a thin tile material like that and it gets cured and it's rock hard, I totally trusted foam. I believed in foam, right? Going from the tray, now that took us to Curdy board, I'm going to say.
Well,
finally,
we had the tray. The corners are still folded. Then we came out with the pre-molded corners, and that, I'll tell you, the girls that answer the phones at our office, customer service, love the corners because the phones stopped ringing.
Oh, okay.
That question just gone.
Done.
It was great. So you can see that the acceptance was there. Mm-hmm. The same thing. It was interesting too. When our trays first came out, they were white foam.
Yeah.
And people, ooh, white foam. It's like a white coffee cup, right? You can crush it with your hand.
Really? That's how they related it? It's like a coffee cup so we can crush it?
Anyway, so we made it gray.
There's no gray coffee cups.
Yeah. So the questions went away.
Wow. Okay. The way people
color
think.
the way color of material can really change people's perception. Same density of foam, everything's the same. It just made it light gray instead of white.
Is this a North American versus European mentality? I can't see the Europeans looking at white foam going coffee cup. This is an American, North American thing, right? I could see us saying white coffee cup.
Well, I talked to some other one of the spray foam guys. They said their spray foam was a beige color, and it was it sold. And they changed it to another color,
and it just
sales went through the roof because it was a color. As opposed to
and all it was
beige.
Just dye. That's all it was.
That's all it is.
It's just dye. Same product, just dye.
Exactly.
Okay, so now we changed it to gray, and then I remember those gray ones. Yeah. Okay. And
so
we're going from there.
So then we came out with curb, right, which is great. And
they're always too big, in my opinion, because I always wanted to get lower and lower and lower, and I finally got to the point where I did, no curbless. I started paying attention to accessibility and people building showers that way and having that little trough between. And I always joked about how it was really difficult for clients to raise their foot 6 inches to get into the shower, right? The thing is, if you build the shower properly, then it shouldn't be overflowing. The drain should be working properly. It should be running. And then as you're showering, the water goes down, and that's it. So what's the risk of you coming out and flooding the whole floor? So I got rid of the curbs, and I even in the beginning I took your curbs and I would cut them down. I'd cut them down to whatever worked for me for the tile install, right? I never kept it at 6 inches because I always felt it was too high. That's just me personally. I don't know, Omid, did you?
Yeah, same way. I find it's a little bit big than with your marble jam or your tile. So same thing. I used to always cut it down, and depending on the tile, and let's say if you're even doing a subway tile and starting from the base and maybe have your full tile at the height of that curb, so I'd cut it down to
3 inches high at the height. Yeah,
you don't need much for any curb. You're just trying to stop the water from coming out. If that's if you're not doing curbless.
Well, another reason is if you're using a shower curtain for your shower, you need something to keep
to hold it in.
shower curtain on a line. If you have a curbless shower with a shower curtain,
water's going to still get out.
Well, then you have to set the shower curtain well inside the sloped area, and then you're losing real estate or it's going to come out. And that brings us, really, if you're doing a curbless, and that is the trend, like our colleagues in Europe, they go, "You guys sell curbs?"
I know. I can imagine that.
I think it would change.
Why would you build a shower with a curb? And to them, it's weird to have a curb. For us here,
it's kind of still the norm.
Still the norm, but it's going to change, especially with we came out with our new trays last year that are thin. So
3/4 inches.
Yeah,
no, 1 inch?
Depending on which one, but they're all less than an inch thick on the outside edge.
Wow.
So now, if you recess the plywood, let's say between your floor joists, you put the tray down, put Ditra or Ditra XL outside, and now it's all
done.
Flush.
Yep.
You don't need to call engineer anymore.
So basically, we can do a new version of a bishop joist setup where you can just remove that plywood and then put some blocking in between the joists and then put plywood down 3/4. So now all of a sudden your tray sits on top of the top of your joist, which is the same height as your existing subfloor.
Exactly.
And now you don't have to reframe and restructure and engineer and get all that crap involved. All you got to do is buy this new product from you guys. And it works beautifully for a curbless, right?
Yeah, we just last week shot a video on how to do the framing portion.
How did that go? I haven't even seen that.
No, well, it hasn't been edited.
Oh,
yet.
okay, hasn't been.
Just
Those
shot
guys are slow. All right.
video, so-
Ours are a little faster.
Well, German company, everything's got to be.
I'm
done
not saying it. I'm not
perfectly.
saying it. No, I know they're really, but that's why we like their products, right? All right, are we finally at Curdy board now?
The niches came out.
First, before Curdy board?
Yeah.
Really?
Well, no, sorry.
No.
Curdy board
no.
came out because we make it out of.
There we go.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I thought.
We actually had the idea of pre-cutting Curdy to be able to fold it into a made niche that you'd build. That didn't go anywhere because it was just way too complicated. And
I can imagine.
Curdy board came out. We made the niches out of Curdy board. So yeah, you're right. Curdy board.
And that was a game change. Now, hang on a second. Am I right to say that Curdy board came before Ditra Heat? Ditra Heat was soon after Curdy board.
Yes.
I think so. Yeah, that's how I remember it. So Curdy board comes out, and now you got an uphill battle still because now you got foam, really flexible foam instead of cement board that everyone's so used to. Respirator, go outside, grinder, cut it, snap it. Don't get a perfect line. Have to trim it, clean it up, grind it, snap it, bring it back in, and then try to drill it in with those screws that always pierce your fingers all the time. So how is that battle when you guys are trying to sell Curdy board now? 1/2 inch, really light, like Omid said, can carry 5 of them up himself up the stairs. I can imagine how that was hard.
I think it sells itself, honestly.
To me, to you, sure, old school guys.
You're absolutely right. It had to sell itself because I could go in, try and talk somebody into it. They take a look at the cost, the board, they'd squish it with their fingers, and they'd go, I don't know. But once they tried it, that was the selling point.
Yeah, give it a chance.
Just here, try it. And we gave away probably, I don't know how many containers of free samples when it first came out for people to try. And all the guys that did get the material to try were convinced. As people try it, they figure it out. It's not something that a sales guy can go in and just say, hey, look at this. This is a great looking tile. And you go, yeah, I'm going to use it, right? This was more of you got to experience the product. That's why it didn't jump out of the gate when we first came out with it.
It didn't?
Well, some guys did.
To me, it did.
I don't know if you ever seen that bell curve of acceptance of products. A certain percentage of early adapters, it's like 10% of the market. And I would probably put Manny into that. Maybe I
Thanks,
don't know
Todd.
it well enough.
No, Omid will be there too.
I mean,
for
you
sure.
know, something new comes out, and you're kind of looking at it, jumping.
Interested.
It's the guys that line up for the new iPhones, right? The early
Mm-hmm.
adapters. Then there's the guys that wait to see if the phone works properly.
Yep.
Right, and that's another big chunk. So if you look at the bell curve, once you get to the top of the bell curve, that's the mass of the population, and then there's the late adapters. You know, the people that still don't know how to use a computer. Those guys are
Listening to A-Track in their car.
bottom
Okay.
of,
All
bottom
right.
at the end of that bell curve.
Got
So
it.
we found that that 10% early adapters jumped on it, and then the others had to figure it out. That bell curve does work for all kinds of products,
But that's not the case now.
now we're kind of we're still climbing that bell curve. We haven't hit the top of the
Oh,
bell
really,
curve
huh?
yet. No,
Wow.
the increases every year are excellent.
Okay, so that's good. Because old school guys are still using cement board, old school guys still using dent shield, and really old school guys are still using drywall.
At our last trade show, I was in the booth and we were showing somebody Curdy board, and one of the contractors that was there as well. And he starts saying, "Oh yeah, I wouldn't use anything else." Blah, blah, blah. He goes, yeah, I was just like you, very skeptical at the beginning, but once I tried it, that's it. Not going to use anything else. The other contractors are like, "Ooh, well, maybe I should try it."
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, wow, my sales pitch was like, keep my mouth shut and let the guys talk, right?
Let them discuss it.
So, and then when you get more and more people accepting it, then other people will accept it even more, and then it gets going and going and going, and everybody's using it. So you have
This
to
is
use it.
already a physically demanding job to do, dealing with tiles and mortar. There's a lot of things. So I think the fact that a lot of these younger guys that are starting into this industry, they're lucky that they don't have to really deal with, in the beginning when you start, your job is to basically cut the boards and put it on. That's how you start to learn how to put up walls, and it's a lot of work. So now when you have a Curdy board, you're saving your back, you're saving your knees, you're saving a lot of time. So, and that being said, these old school guys that have, 15 years, 20 years, their back is gone. I know many people. So now when you're changing this product and you start to learn about these new products like this, and when you start to use it, you're kind of prolonging your career. Less time at the chiropractor, more time, less time at work.
It's kind of sad. I mean, it's respectful that you guys have come up with a product that is lighter, easier to use, but at the same time, the clients and designers are asking for larger tiles and heavier tiles to be installed and worked with, and panels now and things like that. So it still becomes challenging. But I know you're saying, Omid, it's like, you guys are young now, which is great, and I remember those days, but then you're going to get old eventually, and you don't want to be that old guy who's having a hard time walking around.
Yeah.
You want to be that old guy who can actually still be vibrant, right?
You got to work smarter. If you can save a little extra weight, why not every day?
There's one contractor that this is years ago. He came to our booth at one of the trade shows, and he's like struggling to walk.
Yeah.
And he saw Deetra at the time, and he's looking at Deetra, and he's almost crying.
I know. He
And
could
we're
have had
all
his
like,
life.
and it's like, well, he told us his story. He was carrying cement board, because in the U.S. they use cement board as an underlayment, up a real tight staircase, and he lost his balance and blew both his knees out. And that ended his installation career. And when he saw Detroit, he thought, oh my goodness, I could have carried this roll up the stairs and still had my knees.
Yeah, we're really lucky. Thank you,
true.
Schluter.
It's true, right? So I got to ask you, Todd, where's the color orange come from? It was always orange, right, from day one?
Is always orange.
It's not the most attractive color. I'm just saying that it's not the most attractive color. It's a nice color, but it's not the most attractive color.
Orange equals green in my eyes here.
Really? I like that.
I think so.
Orange equals green.
That's a good question. I should find out where the orange came from. But my theory is back in the 70s, there was a lot of orange being used. It was a popular
Cars were
color.
orange.
Remember those plastic chairs?
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's
so
true.
Maybe that's where it came from. But it served us. It's a good almost trademark.
Oh, totally. Anybody
so
sees it now. It just jumps right out.
People ask me, what company do you work for? I say Schluter, and some people, not in the industry, outside the industry, and they go, and I said, the orange
orange
stuff
one,
you see
I
on
say
TV,
the same
and they
thing,
say,
yeah.
and they
Then
go,
they
oh,
know.
yeah, yeah,
Then they
yeah,
know.
yeah,
The orange one from TV. Oh, yeah. I know which one you're talking about.
So we've got, I guess soon after that became Deetra Heat.
Yeah, Detroit Heat came out.
Now that changed everything.
We saw a demand for integrating our product, our Ditra product, with cables. Guys were putting them underneath, they're putting them on top. Some guys are cutting grooves in Ditra XL and popping the cable in. There was all kinds of stuff going on.
Someone was doing that, really?
Oh, yeah,
That seems like a lot of work.
compared to putting the cables down, self-leveling over top, and then putting Ditra on top of that.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of stuff going on, a lot of calls coming in. What do we do with heat? So we came up with a membrane, Ditra Heat, that accepts the cables. And we came up with our own cables too, so that we can provide a full system without any worries that finger pointing, why is this working?
Yeah, of course.
Quite honestly, we're probably the 25th company to offer heating cables, so our expectations were we'll sell some.
That wasn't
Were we
what
wrong?
happened.
No.
Yeah, no.
It was like a landslide. It was
That changed.
unbelievable.
But I guess the sad thing is no more chiclets. What do you guys call those octagon things now?
Well, I don't know if you're familiar with our Becatech product.
Yeah.
Well, basically, Becatech is for a mortar bed, thick application, and Ditra Heat is really for a thin application, a bonded thin application.
Yeah.
And the configuration is relatively the same. Heating tubes for hydronic snap
Yeah,
into
that's right.
Becatech.
It is the same. Yeah.
And for Ditra Heat, it's an electric cable that snaps in between. And the hollow cavities of the discs provide the uncoupling. And we added fabric on the back to create sound control for impact sound.
Condos.
Then you guys also made the thicker version, right? So that was the Ditra, what was that one called?
Well, Ditra Duo has the fleece on the back.
Yeah, it has the fleece, yeah.
And that fleece is for sound control, but also thermal barrier. It doesn't have a lot of R value per se, but the reaction time over concrete improved dramatically when you're using the Ditra Heat Duo because of that little bit of insulation underneath. 75% faster heat up. Heated floors on concrete will take half a day to heat up.
You're fighting the
Because,
concrete.
yeah.
First, you have to heat up
Heat
the
up the entire
concrete
slab,
before
yeah.
the heat comes up to the surface.
Yeah.
So people want to turn it on, have set back thermostats, and have a schedule so that it goes on and off. Well, if it takes you 3-4 hours to heat it up,
Doesn't make any sense.
most people just left it on all the time. By putting this Ditra Heat Duo with the insulation allows those people to have that set back and heats up. It'll heat up. Regular floor and plywood to heat up, let's say, in an hour. It'll take over Ditra Heat Duo an hour and a half to heat up.
See, that's 50% right there.
All right, so Ditra Heat takes us to what? Now we start getting into linear drain land.
Maybe linear drains came out before Ditra Heat.
Oh, did they? Around the same time, maybe.
If I knew we were going to talk about this, I would.
Well, I know you did some homework.
gotta
I
have
know.
a book in
No,
front of
but
us.
it's nice that we're just trying to discover it. But I think you're probably right. I think Ditra Heat and linear drains came out around the same time, and linear drains made a lot of sense to me. And then I don't know if it was you or somebody else who taught me that nobody client-wise likes showering in the center of the shower and having the drain in the center of the shower because as they're showering and bathing, all the dirty water is going down to their feet. So now they're standing in a pool of dirty water. That's the mentality that they have. So that's how the linear drain got to the sides. And then clients wouldn't be standing. And it kind of makes a little bit of sense. So I can see how it works. So now linear drains came out and you guys changed. I mean, linear drains were out. Like some other companies had their drains out already, but they weren't perfect. And then you guys came out with yours, and it made sense to me at that time, right? So, but that must have been challenging.
Linear drains, like I said, were on the market. There was a number of companies that had them, but nobody was really promoting that concept. And the other thing is that most of the other line drains were designed for a rubber liner. So now we got guys that take somebody else's drain that's meant for rubber liner and MacGyver it to surface waterproofing, which
Not gonna happen.
is
Don't
very
do that.
risky.
Nobody's taking the responsibility.
Well, if somebody uses Curdy with somebody else's drain and there's a problem,
Who you pointing at? The installer.
we can't stand behind that connection to the drain.
Yeah.
We'll stand behind the rest of the waterproofing, but at the drain, well, we can't help you. So having one system with the Curdy attached to the flange already, so that again takes the responsibility away from the installer and brings it onto the Schluter. If you follow, like we have handbooks for Ditra and Ditra Heat and shower systems and that, all you have to do is follow the recipes that are in those books. The responsibility is ours.
I think every product you guys have, there is a handbook, and I think DVDs too, right?
Well,
For
I
most
think you
of the
guys
stuff.
stopped the DVDs. It was kind of good you guys stopped the
It
DVDs.
was-
I just like
For the old school guys.
when's the laser disc gonna come? I don't understand why you guys were still, and then that's a shame because Omid and I and everybody else that uses the products, you open up the pack and you take it and you keep the corners because I love the corners, and then you would throw out the DVD and throw out the manual because we knew exactly what was going on. But it's nice that you guys were a company that's still handing it out to those, I guess, the smaller percentage points of guys that were not familiar with it and they need to maybe watch it. But with smartphones today and technology today, you could just log in and check it out on YouTube and see what's going on, right?
Our philosophy, like to make sales, we instead of saying here buy this product, we say we want you to have a successful tile installation. Okay, that's our mentality. If you use our products and we provide you with the product and the information on how to use it and how to install it, you know, training and all that kind of thing, handbooks, videos, so that you can go out and get your installation done properly and quickly and easily, you're going to have a successful installation every time. That's our goal. So if you have that, you're going to have happy customer. You're going to be happy as a contractor, and you're going to continue using our product, and that's going to drive sales, right? As opposed
Orange
to,
means green. I like what Omid said.
you go.
Orange means green.
yeah.
And once they're educated too, it's because I think 100% of the time it's if there is a failure in the shower system, it's because of the installer. For whatever reason, they maybe mistakenly didn't put a corner in or didn't lap it by 2 inches or whatever the case may be. So I guess you're right. You got to try and touch every avenue of media to try and educate the people, because once you get that one negative feedback, it's you kind of damaging the entire company. So showing now that's good that you guys do have it on YouTube, the books and everything. It's really good. And me myself, I even every time I install something, I always just look at it again, just to look at it, just make sure, double check. All right, good to go. Even though I know what I'm doing 100%, it's a good thing it's right there.
It's a refresher.
You can't. If you do it wrong, you're kind of being lazy in my eyes.
Yep.
Everything is there.
Yep.
Take 2 seconds. There's no need to do anything half-assed. Take 2 seconds, take a look at it if you don't know, and that's it. It makes yourself look better too.
Of course it does. And then the product, it's not going to fail, right? So I keep going back to they're spending a lot of money on expensive material that goes over their stuff. So might as well do it properly. So then there's no callbacks except for come back and do another bathroom for me, please. That's what you really want, right?
There's no shame in doing it right as long as it's done right.
No, it takes a little bit longer. You're actually going to make more money in the end than you are if you have to come back and fix something because something failed, right? So good luck on trying to fix that later on. But where do we go from there, Todd?
Well, after the line drains, we started getting into a little bit of style. So we came up with the styled drains.
Yeah, you had the water jet, or I don't know how you guys are doing it.
And a little bit more on the design end of things. So never been a design company, more of the nuts and bolts.
Oh, I know that because I painted one of your drains for the first time black probably about 4 years ago, and I've been asking for black for a long time, and I got hinted that it might be coming, but I'm not exactly sure. I just know that I was at IBS recently, and there was a hint, wink, wink kind of thing that it might be showing up. So I'll leave it with you guys. But until then, I'll continue powder coating and getting them right, and then I'll take the full warranty of it. But I know clients are asking for black, and it's not just you guys. I know Kohler took them about 7 years to start doing black plumbing fixtures too. So a lot of clients are asking for darker colors, different colors, and things like that, not just a typical polished chrome or stainless steel. So I know where you're coming from regarding that.
The trend for black, probably in the last 12 months, went from, this is a cool color to a mainstay. Like if you go to Home Depot and Lowe's,
black and white look,
they have it in stock, and a lot of it.
Really, at Home Depot?
Yeah, in those stores. So if they're stocking it, that means that the sales level
it's hit the masses.
It's hit the masses already. Yeah. So absolutely right. We need to have that.
So design-wise, so you went there, and then now I guess where we're going, we're just perfecting all the new lines now.
Well, one of the things that we did also is the trend line colors. It's powder-coated profiles.
Oh, yeah, I've seen those. Those are actually pretty cool.
We always had metallic colors for profiles. They stood out from the tile. And a lot of people didn't want that.
So loud,
it works sometimes. It totally works sometimes.
Absolutely. You're matching your faucets or your door handles or whatever. But sometimes people don't want to see the profile. So what we did is with the trend line colors, we came up with a spray on two color kind of combination to give it some depth and texture. We basically matched up with all the grays and beiges and grages.
Gracious, yeah, I hate that word. Gracious, okay.
If you take the trendline color range and you go into a tile shop, you'll find one of the trendline colors that will match pretty much every single tile.
It'll work.
And
It'll
grout
work.
too, I found. Some of them, it's just
Grout
like
as
it's
well?
the exact
Yeah,
same
true.
color.
Yeah.
You know?
And even though the price of that is, it's a premium price compared to some of the, like say anodized aluminum, the sales are going through the roof because people want that.
They want the tile to just blend right into the corner.
The texture too,
Yeah,
right? It's
yeah.
very similar.
And I think it was last year you guys introduced a new profile that basically helped and assisted miter joints, which is called
Yes.
the fine neck or fine deck, which is the one that goes on the 45.
The fine neck, yes.
Yeah, fine neck.
So basically, that was driven by designers in that market. They say we want to have just a nice thin little
Thin line.
line on the
Looks very
corner,
clean, yep.
so that it still protects the edge of the tile, so it doesn't get chipped. But we don't want to see a lot of metal on the corner.
Mm-hmm.
So we came out with fine neck, and the only downside to that is you have to miter the tiles.
Yeah, but most guys are mitering the tiles to begin with, but they're nervous about the corner being just pure tile. And if you do nick it with something, which you might, then you've got a broken tile. But if you nick it with a corner like that, it's still going to
It's a lot
survive,
more
right?
durable, yeah.
So you just have the profile point out a little bit beyond the tile, so that it'll take the impact more than the tile, and it works.
There was one product you guys introduced at IBS, which was the 90-degree right angle drain.
Oh yeah, that was
Like that could have saved a lot of headaches years ago if it came out to us sooner. Just saying, it makes a lot of sense when you're in a pinch on a joist system the way it's set up, right?
so many applications. I was at a project where they had a vertical stack in one of the old buildings. Mm-hmm. All the pipes were running vertically, and all the drains were running horizontally, or the drain pipe from the shower drain was running to that stack. So how do you replace that? And
Without cutting
raising
the whole stack, without getting to that whole world.
and then coring through the concrete. Another project, high-rise constructions, concrete, reinforcing steel in the concrete, and they located the drains cores in the wrong spot.
Of course.
So now you got like 700 recores. To recore, you have to X-ray the concrete to see where
Yeah, you
the
gotta
steel is.
Fine, yeah.
You know the cost of that.
Oh,
my God.
Huge.
So to have a horizontal drain that you can just plop down on top of the concrete, run the pipe horizontally across the floor and
Connect.
through wherever the
Done.
penetration is, and you're done. So residentially, basements, builders pour the concrete right up to the pipe. They
Yeah.
don't box it out. Now you can put the drain wherever you want to have the shower, run the pipe horizontally, put it into an elbow, and
You're done.
There's so many great applications, and you get to a job site, you open up the plywood to find out that there's a pot light there from the ceiling below.
I can't put my trap here. Where the hell am I going to put it? I need a right angle drain. Who's got a right angle drain?
And to make things easier, we came out with a compensation board too. So it's a foam board, 2 feet by 4 feet, and you can put that around the drain and around the pipe, and then put our shower tray on top of that,
And it's done.
and you're done. So otherwise, you'd be pouring 3 inches of concrete to fill around the
And
pipe,
build up that bed. Yeah, and you don't want to do that.
No, especially wood construction. Then you have to get engineering. Is it going to take the weight?
It's too heavy.
And,
It's too heavy.
and there's just the labor in that. So the compensation board's a really great idea.
I like that. And it's gray too. Well, no, I saw it in gray because it was PVC. But it comes in ABS?
ABS PVC.
It comes in both, right?
2-inch outlet, yeah.
I'm still trying to figure out why Canada's ABS and the U.S. is PVC.
Well, some parts of the U.S. are actually both. So
Which parts of those? The West?
There's some states that are mixed, and then there's states that are all ABS, but most of the states is
PVC.
PVC.
PVC, which is weird because here we're PVC below grade underground and
Or
we're ABS
exterior,
above.
Yeah.
Right, so I don't know. We have best of both, or I don't know. We use both, but okay. So what else are we talking about here? Now you guys got back into the designer, and you guys started doing the designer shelving,
Yeah, the shelves.
the new ones, the new ones now that actually have two purposes. You can go in before the tile set, and you can go in after the tile set, right?
Yes, there's 3 types of shelves. One that is that has little tabs that you cut the grout out with some Curdy Fix. Adhere the tabs inside the grout joint, and then caulk the rest of it in with a silicone or color match caulking. And there's your shelf. So you can go into an old shower that's got, shower I was in today at my hotel has a wire basket screwed to the wall.
Oh, I love those ones.
Right, somebody puts their hand on it, and the screws are popping out. Plus, you just violated your waterproofing by putting screws in.
Of course.
So this can be an easy redo. Or with new construction, you just, tile, put the shelf in, pin it with more tile in your set. There's another one that has anchoring legs, both up and down, so that you can put the shelf in the middle of a wall, pin it in with tile because it has anchoring legs going behind the tile.
Okay, yeah.
And the third one is designed to go into our niches. Because we, for our bigger niches, we provide a Curdy board shelf.
Yeah, the prefab niches, yeah.
But you have to tile that.
Yeah, and it gets really thick.
And it's
Yeah.
thick, and it's a lot of work to tile and cutting tile and whatnot. So these shelves fit perfectly inside our niches.
You guys gonna expand that line with some black shelves? We'll see. We'll see what the Germans come up with and when they bring it to. I'm assuming black is big in Germany or no? In Europe, I don't know.
In Europe, it's a different market.
It's
for
completely,
sure.
yeah, I can
And
imagine.
You go from Europe to Asia, it's
Different.
again different.
Come to North America, different.
I talked to the guys at Kroller, and they say they make certain colors that are meant for one area of the world, and
Oh, yeah.
another for
Wow.
another. And,
Oh yeah,
and
crazy.
even though it's in their catalog, you probably can't find it here because they don't have stock, but it's there. So there's a lot of markets that you have to. California is different than Florida. That's different
Totally.
than Toronto.
totally. So with the shelves, now you've got the edging, and now you guys just introduced 10-foot lengths of edging.
Yes.
All the profiles.
Not all the profiles. It's
Oh, okay.
a selected range. So in our price list, there's one page dedicated to 10-footers. So that
How
you
many,
can see
how many
what's
times,
available.
Omid, have you had to splice?
I just last
done it
week,
twice.
I think just last week I just did a bathroom and it
had
was
to
it
splice,
was
eh?
it was 3 inches I needed. I just needed 3 inches. So
That kills you, huh?
Oh,
It kills.
It's
But now we don't have
nuts.
to do that.
No. We got the 10-footers. Just get used to which products and colors are available in the 10-footers so that you can steer your customer to those. And we did come out with quite a range of different profiles as well as different colors. All the best sellers for sure. If you have a seam, even if you say you have a 20-foot ceiling, if your seam is 10 feet above the ground, nobody looks up there.
No.
But when the seam is
8-foot
8
or
feet.
9-foot ceiling, and you've got a 12-inch
Yeah.
piece, you'll see it.
yeah, for
And,
sure.
and it'll annoy you. It doesn't matter how perfect it turns out and how tight it is and whatever, you'll still see it. And then it drives you crazy, right? As an installer, I don't think clients are that worried about it. Or maybe I'm wrong. Maybe designers are.
I think it goes both ways.
Both, yeah?
I think at the end of it, when you look back and you see a job, you'll know where things could have looked better. Like that right there is just, I look at it and that's the first thing I see. It's just like
Your
this
eyes are
should-
drawn
this should
right
be a
to it.
different way. And it's now that and people like the Jolly Edge and they want that chrome look, and it's just like, well, they only making it this, but now that we have the 12-foot or 10-foot, is it 10 or 12?
They're 10.
10s.
10-foot. Okay, so there we go.
And then also, you guys just introduced a 6-foot wide roll of Curdy.
Yeah. Well,
Is
it's
it 6? Is
It's
it
2 meters.
2 meters.
So it's 6'6", and you can just take the roll. One of our reps, that's an ex-installer, he did the video and came up with an installation technique, the 6.5-foot roll up, and you spread thin set and
Just walk.
roll it out,
Yeah.
press it in, spread more thin set, roll it out,
That's
press
it.
in, and you can just wrap your entire shower with the 6'6"
Yeah,
Curdy.
no seams, no nothing.
No, nothing. No Curdy band in the corners.
So this would be over Curdy board or just regular board?
Just
or-
whatever drywall,
Drywall,
cement
yeah.
board,
yeah,
whatever.
that's it, huh?
Maybe not for the first time Curdy user because it's a little more tricky to handle. But if you're doing a waterproofing a pool deck or a big floor area,
Just one piece, and then
Yeah,
the
that's
piece
a
will be
good
done.
point that you bring up, because I know I learned not early on, but later on, I learned that a lot of Schluter products are used on an exterior basis in Europe.
the climates are a little different than Canada.
That's the thing about it. So now that's why we don't use them here, because of our extreme bullshit winters is what we got going on. It won't work.
Exteriors are this one mistake. Exterior, it's going to get you every time.
Got it.
You'll have a bad result. Interior, you can make mistakes and get away with it. There's installers that make mistakes every day because they don't install properly, and they get away with it most of the time because the conditions aren't as drastic as they are on the exterior. To ask somebody to do a perfect job on the exterior, again, puts so much onus on the installer that it's not fair. Even though we have all the products to do exteriors that are proven in milder climate, it's not a really great idea to do that exterior stuff in Canada. Good example, just the thin set mortar. The mortar has to be between 10 degrees Celsius and 30 degrees Celsius for at least 2 weeks for the mortar to cure properly.
Fully cure.
And that's
Good luck
for
in winter in Toronto.
Well, not
Well, Canada.
Even when is it going to be above 10 degrees at night?
Yeah, even if you
Even
go
in
as
the
far out
summertime,
as in BC, you don't get that. And at nighttime, it still gets colder. It gets zero.
Even in Toronto, even Windsor, which is probably the warmest spot in Canada, besides Vancouver. But to get those conditions, you maybe have like a 3-4 week period. The chances of a job being done during that period are slim.
Yeah.
So then you're just asking for trouble.
So you're basically saying stay away from the exterior.
That would be good advice.
So now you know I'm going to do something in the exterior.
And if you are, let us know. We'll walk you
Well, I'll
through.
let you know. I'll call the girls up and I've got a question. I've got a question. Now that you told me all this information, I'm going to call the girls up and ask them about corners. Or I'm asking them all these old school questions that you guys had that you thought are not being asked anymore, just to kind of upset them.
Just to add to the exterior portion, we used to include the exterior products in that in our catalog. We've taken them out.
For those reasons.
The Dietra handbook used to have exterior applications. We've taken it out.
Yeah, I remember seeing them in there. That's why.
Now we have an exterior price list and an exterior details that are basically when, let's say you want to do an exterior, you give us a call. We have a full procedure now to validate the installation, make sure that all the conditions are met properly, and we'll walk you through the whole installation. And there's even a sign-off that you agree to
Oh, wow. Okay.
make sure all these conditions are met.
Got it.
Because at the end of the day, if all those conditions aren't met and that causes the failure, at the end of the day, oh, you use Schluter and it failed. We don't want that.
You guys don't want that. You don't want to have the conversation.
We don't want to go there. We don't, like I said before, we want a successful installation. We have to make sure that it's done properly. That's what we're going to have to do. Opening exteriors to the masses is not a good idea. Every exterior that I've looked at that was a problem, something was done wrong.
I was just interested because I remember seeing in those earlier brochures about the exterior balconies and things like that, little areas that are above first floor situations, rooms. Then it became a whole waterproofing, which made sense to me. But you're right, the weather, the way our seasons are, and they won't work. So it makes no sense. Stick with the roofers and what they do, and they'll take care of that waterproofing section of it, right?
The material too, right? Think about the tile that you need and the grout. Think about like the freeze-thaw cycle that you go through, and just that's your first layer of defense right there.
Yeah.
And if your tile expands too much, and your grout can't take it, then that's the first thing that's gonna go. And then once any water gets in behind there, with
then
the freezing,
you're
it's
screwed,
done.
yeah.
The first layer is the material, the grout and the tile.
So where's Schluter going now? Now that it's been a fun ride since the 70s, 80s, 90s, now we're into 2000s, and everyone is like ingrained now with orange and Schluter, and you guys are perfecting all the Curdy became wider and drain became right angle, and profiles now are 10 foot, and you guys are curting all the trays now, and the curting the curbs, and then you're also curting the benches. What's next?
Well, the way our company develops product is we look at the tile installer and where their pain points are, what's causing you grief. And we look then to resolve that grief.
Mm-hmm.
So what's the grief of the day today? Like what's the masses of installers out there saying, this is what I got a problem with. Can you guys help me with it? I love, by the way, that you had an installer who started the company, saw a problem, solved the problem, built an entire catalog around those problems, and now you're still doing that to installers today. Weren't even born. He wasn't even born when they started.
Thought of, okay?
I was born, but he wasn't even born.
I wasn't even in it yet. Jeez.
That's cool.
That's interesting, huh?
Yeah.
He wasn't even born, but now he loves the product and he's using it, right? I can only imagine, I'm sure you guys can't talk about it, but I can only imagine what's going to happen this year, next year, and so on, and what other new products are going to come out.
I can't speak to specific products. We do have, like I mentioned before, a large group of people in product management that's been developed 2 years ago. We started that. I'm part of that group as well. We're working on all kinds of projects right now, or we're limited by resources in terms of people to get all these things done. So you'll see a lot of really amazing products coming out over the next ongoing, but over the next, let's say, 2-3 years.
But we're in the training center here, and I can only imagine that you guys get, 40, 50, 60 people, installers in here, and you guys train them on your products, and you guys probably get a world of feedback.
Absolutely. We have a little questionnaire that we give all our people that come to the workshops. So just a little bit about the workshop. We have our training center here in Toronto, but we also have one in Vancouver and Clemson. We use the training center there. We have one in Plattsburgh, one in Reno, and then we do remote. We've done hundreds and hundreds of workshops every year throughout North America, put through thousands of people. And that's probably part of our success, is that once guys are trained to do something properly and they do it properly and they have that successful installation at the end, their customers and the installer themselves will want to use our product because it
So true.
And showing how to use our product, I think, is very, very important in these workshops. If whoever's listening to this podcast, if you haven't come to our workshop,
Yeah.
Look it up. Check it out where it is.
register. They're free. It's a 2-day course. If you're traveling from out of town, we'll even put you up at a hotel at our cost. We
I know.
feed you. I mean, it's
You guys
it's
never
a great
put me
program.
up. Never got a hotel. Nothing. Because I live in the area. That's why.
Come on. I even came to the workshop. I did the first one, and I think 3 or 4 months later, I did the second one. I was impressed. You know, there's a lot of detail that goes into it, and the hands-on is, I think, the most valuable thing here. There's someone here basically going to teach you and show you how to actually do it with the mock-ups, and right there is basically that's your bathroom. Girls and guys here, both of them, everyone helping each other out, and you know, everyone's happy talking. You know, this is almost like a networking thing that goes on here. And I met a couple guys through the workshop
Oh yeah.
that are good friends of mine now, and that are tile setters, and it was thanks to the workshop. It was almost like a 2-day little break from work, and you get to learn about the product and see maybe this even as a homeowner. There was a lot of homeowners here too. I remember.
Really?
Yeah, they would.
You've had homeowner. You let them in here. Todd's got a look on his face.
Well,
I don't know. That's news to him.
it shouldn't be.
No,
but,
I know. We don't
you
want them in here.
It's sometimes they sneak in.
Is that what it is?
Yeah,
Sometimes.
They're the same ones that sneak into trade-only suppliers. That I hate that. You don't belong in my world. Get out of here. Go back to your world, man. Go back to your cubicle. Right.
It's something that we try to avoid, but
They sneak
if somebody
in.
wants to
I
get
know.
in, they'll pretend they're a contractor.
They'll put on a
and-
pair of work pants and get them dirty a little bit, and then walk in here. Go, yeah, I'm a contractor. Yeah, yeah. You're right though about the networking. Totally right about the networking. That's what's amazing about it.
And people underestimate the value of networking because you come and you talk to another competitor even, and you find out some of their pain points and how they got around them, and boom, you apply that knowledge to your business.
That's
and
always been the case. Every time I walk into a supplier and I always have a problem, I'll announce it. I'll just make sure that I'm vocal about it. And I guarantee you that another contractor will overhear that question and they will share a tip that they may know. And then they tell you, that's how I found out about IBS. That's how I found out about certain suppliers. That's how I found out about the business in general. It's just you start being more vocal about your inquiries. And social media is great for that. And probably the only best part of social media outside of the hacks out there. But the problem is that you start being vocal about your questions, someone will answer you. Like good guys are really good guys, and they're more interested in helping you and helping you build your business. There isn't that kind of bullshit attached to where, oh, you're my competition. I don't want to tell you any of my
Yeah,
trade
keep
secrets
quiet
because
kinda
you're going to
thing.
take work away from me. Bullshit. There's plenty enough work out there for everybody if you're a good guy. You know, if you want to build a good business and you want to be a good tile installer and you want to use the best products, then that's the kind of person you are, and you're going to want to share it. You want to give up the ideas and give up the tricks and give up all that stuff. So it's good that you guys are doing this, and you guys are doing the class like how often? It's weekly? No,
well, here in Toronto, it's monthly.
monthly.
And sometimes more than that, because they'll go out to, say, Kingston and do a workshop there, go to Ottawa, do a workshop.
Holy cow,
They'll
bro.
rent a hotel banquet room and set everything up. It's pretty wild, the investment that the company makes. And that goes back to being a privately held company.
Yeah.
They can do this kind of thing where...
I can't see this if it was a corporation
No.
and board of directors are like, why are we doing this? This makes no sense.
Yeah, we're spending how many millions of dollars
That
on
makes no
something that we're
sense.
not making any direct payback, but the indirect payback is
Huge.
Yeah, massive.
There's less and less. We're selling more and more product, and there's less and less problem.
That's
Educate the
any
people.
business
That's
owner,
it.
any subcontractor, that's a dream. That's
Yeah.
a dream right there. That's what you want.
And that then drives, because again, it goes back to successful installations. You have no problems. You have successful installation. Everybody's happy. It was interesting. I talked to a contractor from the U.S., and he said that the way he adopted Schluter was through his accountant.
His accountant.
How's that?
Okay, so this intrigued
All
me. He said, he's working, he's running so many crews, he's like working his butt off, and at the end of the year, he's made so much money, right? So the next year, he's going, okay, how am I gonna make more money? I can't run more crews and this and that. He's already bottlenecked. He's talking to his accountant, and his accountant said, well, use product that is going to be, first of all, easily available, so it doesn't slow your work down. Good support so that you're not using it incorrectly. Something that's going to speed up your installation. So with the same number of crews, you can do more work,
Make more
money. Again, orange is green.
Orange is green.
I like that.
And he didn't believe it, his
Hashtag.
accountant, but he says, you know what, I'll try it. He adopted Schluter and a few other products on the market that would make his life easier and faster, a little technology too. So his costs went up a little bit for material and the technology, but his profits
Well,
compensated
his
for
labor went down.
Yeah.
yeah. At the end of the day, he looked at his statement and he goes, wow, I made a lot more money this year, even though his cost of materials and that went up. A lot of guys can't figure that out. They go, if I spent more money on material, I'm not going to make as much money because I can't charge more for the job. I have to buy all my materials as cheap as possible.
That's not true.
That's not the way to do it.
That's
No.
not it anymore.
And that's bad math.
Yeah.
No.
I always told guys in the beginning that don't look at the individual line item cost, look at the overall budget
Yes.
cost of a project. So if one line item like Schluter is a little bit more expensive, in the overall scheme of things, it's actually going to be cheaper if you think about it, and you'll make more money. Funny that he learned it from his accountant, which is great. Orange is green. I like that. They're going to take that from you, Omid. You know
That's
that, right?
okay. They've done a lot for me anyways.
Anything else we want to share, Todd? I want to wrap it up, but I mean, I think we talked a lot about Orange, and I'm going to still continue using it. You know what I mean? I'm curious about what else you guys are going to come out with, but I'll wait and see, and then we'll start modifying and using it, and it will get incorporated to my rentals and his rentals and everybody else's, right? So
Well, in 2 weeks is the covering show down in Florida.
you're heading, Omid's heading
Yes,
down there for the
Todd
first
guy
time.
will be there for the first time.
He's going down there. I'm not going down there. I've been to Florida too many times, and I was in Vegas twice this year already for IBS and World of Concrete and KBIS. So I'm taking a break. Maybe you might catch me in Circe in Italy, the tile show there, because I'm very fascinated about what's going on with Europe and their tiling and what's happening. I know Ish was just going on. Wasn't Ish in Germany?
Yeah, that's every 2 years.
Every 2 years, right? And then someone just told me about a Paris show that's going on this year in September. A builders show in Paris, right? So I'm like, okay, that sounds cheap, by the way. Paris construction show and a Canadian going down there. Let's see how cheap that's going to be. But I'm sure Schluter, you guys will be there. Must be there.
I didn't hear about it, but
I just
we'll
heard about it
probably be
recently.
there.
So I never even knew Paris had this show. It's nice to get out to the shows. It's nice to network and nice to see what the rest of the world is doing. And that's the beauty of social media as well. I don't know. Omid, you got anything else you want to share here?
I think we touched a lot of topics here, and it's really good. It's just the one big thing is I remember even the beginning too, and a lot of guys I find it's, oh, but this costs more than a sheet of dent shield or whatever it is. But guys, you guys gotta look at this. You guys need to actually sit down. You guys need to do the math yourselves. You need to figure out, okay, if a standard bathroom, 5x5 bathroom, and you just figure out how much time is going to take you to do this, and how many guys you need to do the job, and figure out your material cost, and then the time that you save to do it. Like with the regular PVC membrane, you got your pre-slope, you got your PVC membrane, then you got to do your dry pack again, right? That right there, unless you're using fast set,
Let
that's
it
a
dry,
2-day
come
thing.
back. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like this, you can have this bathroom ready in a half day, and in your second day you could be tiling. I can do a bathroom in 3 days now, a standard bathroom, and the third day is basically grout. That's it. So you guys take it. If you guys haven't used it, and the old school guys, if you guys want to keep, instead of maybe 2 years left in the career, you guys want to make it 3 years, try it out. Try it out 100%.
Make a little bit more retirement money before you get out of the game.
Why not?
All right. I feel like there's more to say, but I'm going to wait until you guys have more products out there, right? I feel like going shopping because I see a rack right behind you, Todd, that's got all these wonderful product there.
I know.
The other thing I can mention too is that we do take input in our product management group. If there's something that is a pain point that's difficult or troubling or whatever, let us know, whether it's with our product or with tile installation in general.
You want to hear it.
We want to hear it so that those ideas or those concerns are what drives us to create new product. Like the horizontal drain, for example, contractors would say, oh, what do I do? How do we do this? And, we got a problem. We came up with a horizontal drain to address that problem. It'll probably maybe 5% of our drain sales will be horizontal, but
it's a
those
problem being
5%,
solved for the industry, which is really key. Yeah,
That's right.
no, totally.
I encourage that flow of information because we want to hear it.
Perfect. I think we touched upon a lot of stuff. So Todd, thank you very much again for joining this podcast. Omid, thank you. Always
No
good to see you
problem.
again. I think I just saw you like a few days ago. I see more men in my life than women. I got to start working on this, man. It's just insane. But I want to thank both of you guys for joining. And this has been another episode of The Construction Life. And I like what we keep on sharing. And it's always about, it's true. It's always about problem solving and sharing what the information that we can have and give it to other people so they can make their business a lot better and make their career a lot better. Because I've always said that this is a career and not a job. It's important to keep on doing that. That's it. So stay tuned for the next episode. Thanks, guys.
Take
Cool.
care.
Thanks for having us.
See you at coverings.
Not me. I'll check out the posts.